6 years ago, some of the people in that building over there came together with a bill that was the first of the 3 attempts over the past 3 years to take away your rights as a parent to make an informed consent decision for your children. I had the pleasure of being, and fortunate enough to be, among about 200 to 300 parents who showed up to testify against that bill, Senate Bill 442 in 2015. And all of us gathered in the hall outside of the hearing room afterwards, and that gave the birth to Oregonians for Medical Freedom. We are a bipartisan group of people, some of whom vaccinate their children, but on a schedule of their own choosing, some who do not vaccinate their children, but we all agree that it is a parent's decision to make that choice, not the government's. That wasn't my beginning in the medical freedom movement. It actually began 20 years ago as my oldest child was about to enter school. Back in 2001, Oregon only had a religious exemption. And at that time, I didn't belong to a church that was opposed to vaccines. So I didn't want to be a hypocrite. So I asked one of my law school classmates, who happened to be a senator at that time, to introduce a bill at my request that would have added a philosophical exemption. Our Oregon Health Department came to the hearing. We had a hearing in front of the Senate Education Department, our committee. And our Oregon Health Department at the time came and testified against it, saying, we actually don't need a philosophical exemption because our administrative definition of religion is very broad. It includes, quote, any set of beliefs, practices, or ethical values. Bill didn't pass, didn't get out of committee, but hopefully a lot of Oregonians got educated, and at that time, the exemption rate started to creep up slowly, hopefully as a result of that bill getting publication and publicity. Some of the publicity that I got was how I met the next speaker I'm about to introduce. At that time, she had a radio show on KPDQ, and she interviewed me with regard to that bill. She's currently Mary Sterrett.
Thank you. Bob just reminded me of that story, and that was a trip down memory lane. Well, first of all, I want to thank all of you who are here, and I want to say that you remind me of the Nazi resistors in the Warsaw Ghetto in Poland. If you know anything about that story, there were women, there were young men, there were children who said, we are not going to let this happen. And the way they fought back was nothing short of miraculous. They were able to stay alive when other Jews had long succumbed to the Nazi regime. So you are all part of that resistance, and every one of you can make a difference. I am so blessed to be working with a team of people like Superintendent Thielman and Dr. Ely, who you'll meet in a bit, and Amber and everybody else, and Bob Snee, who have come together to say this is not right. As a commissioner in Yamhill County, we've suggested that there be several resolutions passed that would make vaccine passports prohibited. Well, we found out that legally we couldn't do that. But what we could do is pass a resolution that recommended that vaccine passports, your papers please, not be any condition for public accommodation or employment. We also have, and I want to know if my fellow Commissioner Lindsay Berschauer is here. And if Lindsay Berschauer is here, she has been a stalwart in this fight as well. And as you know, on a board of 3, the majority is 2, and we can all count. And we were able to work to try to push back. Now, we tried to get informed consent for parents because the Oregon legislature, in their wisdom, decided that parents were the enemy 20 years ago, 30 years ago. There's a law that says the age of medical consent is 15. So now they're encouraging and incentivizing get the jab to kids, giving them iTunes gift cards and a variety of other goodies without parental consent, and you never need know. Well, we pushed back and we said, okay, we're not allowed to do that. As soon as we passed the resolution at noon, by 5:04, that day, Oregon Health Authority had sent us an email saying, you can't do that. If anybody who works for the county does this, you will be fined. These are the provisions and these are the prohibitions. So they don't like any kind of pushback. But what's been frightening about this, despite what went on in that building, and of course you can see you're not allowed in that building. That's your building, and you've been locked out. And legislators on both sides of the aisle, with a handful of exceptions, have acquiesced to every one of these restrictions. And you're going to hear from Senator Linthicum and Senator Thatcher and those who have, and Senator Hurd, those who have stood stalwart, and Representative Neerman, who have said this is not acceptable in this country. But what's been more frightening is how the American people have acquiesced to curfews, sitting outside in a tent in freezing temperatures, wearing masks, and social distancing. In my county, which is a small rural county, we have seen snitch culture at its best, where people will call the county and request that there be an investigation because someone in the small town of Carlton was standing outside smoking in February without their mask on. And you know what happens at 9:45? Our health inspector, environmental health inspector, went out to check it. Now, to me, that's not an emergency. So we pushed back on that. We pushed back on making sure that people get the true story about the information that you're getting about these vaccines being safe and effective. They're not. And so we're pushing back on that level as well. And as Superintendent Thielman said, there is nothing more frustrating than to get email after email from people who say, what can we do? Please help us. And there really was no legislative fix. It's going to have to happen at the local level. And that's where you come in. And that's when I'm on a call with 36 different counties, their commissioners, and I see that nobody else is standing up to the governor. So I've made requests for information that have been largely ignored. Actually testified in federal court against the governor. I was on a call with her spokesperson, and I asked, why aren't the faith-based schools allowed to stay open? Why are these schools being shut down when they have the plan and they're ready to go back to school? And the spokesperson said to me, that's because we're afraid we'll see a mass exodus from the public schools. And so I put that on Facebook. And within 12 hours, I had a call from the Alliance Defending Freedom saying, will you sign an affidavit that that is true? And I had a lawyer in Portland who defends faith-based institutions who said, did that really happen? So I testified in December in federal court, and I have to tell you, I don't go to Portland anymore, but it was worth going down there for that. Well, of course, every lawsuit that's been brought against the governor, it, no surprise, has failed because the benches are stacked with people who are supportive of the governor, as is the supermajority in that building across the street. So all I can say to you right now is that this battle will be fought and won on the local level. Just like in the Warsaw Ghetto, when those 17-year-old women were walking through sewage canals and dodging bullets and hiding firearms in loaves of bread. I'm not advocating for armed revolution. What I am saying is that we are small and we are mighty, but we can be effective. And the one thing we have to remember is that this battle will be fought on our knees in deference to the Almighty and asking for providence, but we will never bow our knee to this type of tyrannical regime because it's overreach and it's not going to end. So thank you all for being here, and we have an amazing group of people who have decided to join this battle, so thank you.